A bit hard to hear because I couldn't understand the language you speak. It was a good episode. Beauty of language, pretty much, and not just like what languages, like communicating and the basics of it. So it was pretty good.
That was a good episode.
Absolutely. You're gonna tell your friend that he was the inspiration behind this episode?
Oh yeah, I'll tell him, bro.
Absolutely. Make sure he watches it too.
What do they call it after? After 3?
Polyglots.
Oh yeah.
Polyglots.
Someone who speaks more than, I think, 3.
Is that how you say
I
English?
think
So you're a polyglot.
Yeah.
So once you get past
Grammar
5,
sounds weird, bro.
that's only up to 5.
Like, that's the beauty of language, isn't
So
it?
I've got 2 languages. I speak 2 languages. So what am I?
You're bilingual.
Bilingual. I'll take that.
You'll take that.
Yeah.
You just want that extra title. Fair enough.
Alhamdulillah.
Anyways, man, so today we spoke about the beauty of languages.
Yeah.
There was one guy who was an inspiration behind this episode, and you'll find out more, inshallah, when you tune into the episode. But we also spoke about how the kids nowadays are speaking a different language, and how it is that we can sort of engage with them, and how important it is for us to understand communication and to connect with different types of people, especially the ones who are going to be the future, which is the children. But in any case, enjoy the episode, inshallah, and let us know what you think. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Unleash Potential podcast. My name is Omar Hassan, and unfortunately we don't have our regular host, Abdullah Haji. His throat is gone, but we still got our throats intact, alhamdulillah. So,
functional.
Yeah, as usual, today you'll be joined by Abdul Jabbar and Omar Elmi as well.
Yeah.
So just the 3 of us, but inshallah we'll make an awesome episode out of it.
Inshallah.
Yeah, better episode out of it.
A better episode, without the additional stops that.
Yeah,
I do.
all the time you have to go to the toilet like every 5 minutes. We will stop recording. So
Anyways, man, you probably weren't there, but me and Almi were having a little conversation about this one bloke that he ran into, and he was telling me that he spoke like 7 languages. And I myself know somebody that speaks at least 5 or 6 languages.
the first thing I ask is, does that guy travel? Has he lived somewhere else before? Because it's a lot easier to learn language
I don't know if he's traveled.
in that environment.
But he grew up in Ethiopia, Dildaba,
Yeah.
and he speaks pretty much all the Ethiopian languages: English, Arabic, Somali, like birth. Somali,
Dialects.
I think it's about 3 or something dialects, whatever there is. He speaks all the Somali dialects. It's pretty hectic, bro.
Yeah, then that's actually like conscious effort to like take that.
Like this guy, Ramadan, obviously you go Tarawih, at the mosque. Like he will speak to everyone in their language, like literally all the Muslims there, like Arabic. What is it? The only thing he's missing is the Pakistani Urdu and Hindi.
You know what's crazy about that is the fact that when he speaks, it's as if he is a native speaker.
Oh, that's crazy.
That's even
He's
more,
got that.
because if somebody is trying to, like, if he speaks an African language, right, and he's trying to speak an Asian language, sometimes they don't have the proper tongue for it.
Yeah.
Like, for example, in Amharic, there's certain tongues, there's certain letters and sounds that are very difficult for someone else to pronounce, right? Like, or in the Arabic language, they have the a, which is very hard for some people to pronounce, right? But for someone to just speak it as if he's a native speaker, bro, you gotta give.
Is he a spy?
What?
Is he a spy?
No, he's not a spy. He's a legend, bro. He's a legend. You know what they call him? His nickname, they call him Ethiopia. You know how Somalis, everyone has a nickname?
Yeah.
Literally, his name is Ethiopia, bro.
It's the whole country.
His whole country, bro.
Man, imagine if you were
It's
that
all
person
black,
in the
all black,
Somali
mashallah.
community,
Yeah.
you get calls left, right, and center. Hey, can you, deal with this immigration problem? Can you translate this piece of paper? Can you? But that used to be me. When Perth used to be so small,
Yeah.
anytime like the people in my neighborhood, like literally in my neighborhood, the neighbors or whatever, needed anything, talk to the telecommunication companies, any of that, it was like, go quite bad. Like he's down the road, go bring in, he'll figure it out, he'll sort him out, because he understands, or he's educated in the language and he understands it. And like they used to back even in school when they had the ESL kids, they used to do they used to get into a fight, whatever it is. The mum will come and the teacher and the mum could not talk, so they're like, just call one of the Somali guys to come. Like, imagine being the person that knows that many languages. You get pulled aside all the time.
Man, that's tough, man. I remember I got called up by my parents to translate a government document.
There you go.
That happens, even
All
when
the
you're
time.
7 years old. It doesn't matter, man.
Yeah,
You just
They
that's the
give
reason
you-
why you get sent to school, right?
They give you the phone like with no information, no background. Here, talk to them right now. And you're
Exactly.
like, who is this? What are we talking about? Like,
Exactly. But how do you reach that level where you feel like it's necessary for you to learn more than one language? I know, like a lot of ethnics, they have more than one language anyway, especially the ones that are living abroad, right? But then to pick up an additional language on top of that, outside of your own language and your home country language. So for us, for example, Somali, for you to speak Somali and English, and then an additional language.
well, I think there's two pretty much reasons why people do it. One is if you really love like language and like learning that sort of stuff, and that's like your thing, then you'll learn it. Like you'll do it. The second is out of necessity. Like if we start a business and we need to go to China every 3 months, we'll eventually learn the language. You know what I mean? If you're doing business with someone, you'll eventually learn. Like we learn English, or our parents brought us here to learn English and all that because we have to in this environment. You know what I mean? So if you don't have to do it, and it's like not a necessity, and you don't really enjoy doing it, you're never gonna learn it. Like how many people have you heard, I'm gonna learn a new language? You know, I'm gonna start learning a new language, and they never do. You know what I mean?
And they
So
struggle
it's
with their own language.
Yeah, you gotta. Oh yeah. This day, yeah.
This day and age.
So like you really gotta have the love for it, or it's gotta be a necessity. Like if you're bringing your kids over to another country, if you're doing business, you know, you learn.
But I'm like, look, if you've got children, for example, that are of young age, and you're teaching them English because it's a requirement for you to be able to survive in this country, right? To learn the home country language, and you yourself are forcing them to learn your own ethnicity or your own ethnic language. Why not add an additional one? Why not add something that could be potentially beneficial somewhere else?
True.
That's
Like
true.
a very, very diverse language. Arabic is one of them, obviously. You know. The other one would be Mandarin.
Mandarin is very important.
Yeah, very important. Like, why not? Why don't we emphasize that? I think about that sometimes.
No, like you said, people are struggling to learn their own language. Trying to chuck in a third, a fourth in there. I don't know about that.
It depends on the environment, man, where you are, where you live. Like, it depends. Like, I've got all my grandparents, my grandmother's brother in UK. He speaks a lot of languages, bro. You know, Somali, you know, all the Ethiopian languages, you know, French, Italian, Russian as well. Fluent, bro.
How many languages do you speak?
Yeah. I speak 2 languages, bro. 2 English, Somali, like 80%, and but I can read 3. I can read English, Somali, Arabic.
Yeah, see, that's the other
Writing
thing.
Arabic,
Being able to
yeah,
read and
yeah,
write.
yeah.
Like that, I think that's the second step. The first step is if you can hold a conversation in that language. I
I
would
think
say
the
you
first
know
step
the
is
language.
like being able to hear it and understand what it is. Because the first thing you learn when you learn language is like what it sounds like. So sometimes even my kids, young kids that are just learning to speak, they understand what you're telling them. They just can't say it back. You know what I mean? And some people that have like broken Somali or broken English are the same. They will have like that word in their mind, or they know what it is. They completely understand everything you're saying. They just can't speak it back. Then there's the people that can do that. They can hear it and speak it back, but they can't read or write it at all.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like for me with Arabic, it was actually the opposite. I learned to read and write Arabic first.
Before actually speaking it.
Before like any, like, I can't speak it at
That's
all.
actually the most with a lot of Muslims that are non-Arab, like or non-Arab speakers,
Yeah.
right? They learn to read the Quran. They learn to pronounce certain words before they can actually speak it.
Yeah.
Right? So if you reading and potentially writing as well, I think is a lot harder than actually speaking it. What do you think?
I reckon, honestly, speaking it will be easier. Like context-wise, like if I drop you into China right now, filled with like people that speak Mandarin, and like you gotta stay there for 6 months, you'll probably learn how to speak more than you can pick up writing. Because you're gonna be speaking more than you're gonna be writing. You know what I mean? And that really depends. Because like that's what it
Yeah,
is.
so you get a lot more practice, but then like in
Yeah,
terms
like
of
how often are you writing things compared to like with Arabic?
no, but what about reading? Reading is another portion of writing.
Reading
Oh,
is
right.
reading is really
Yeah,
good.
that's true.
It really does depend on how you learn. Because if you're someone that I like to read a lot too, so if I know the language how to read it, I'm going to be constantly picking up new words and learning it that way. But have you ever had someone that there are people that will learn a language by reading and writing or whatever it is and never speaking that language? Like there could be a Somali learning fluent French, has no one to speak French to. And you take that person that's read it, seen it, you know, all the time, and then you put them in a room with some French person, they barely know how, although they can talk, but the communication is going to be a bit hard to get through. Like, have you seen that before? Like, where they can't really communicate? Like, that was me with, when I was younger in high school, and I was learning Arabic, you know, I could read it, I could write it, you know, time to speak it. Everything is slang. Everything is slang, everything is different. So I say one word, they're looking at me like, oh, you mean this, you know?
Because I think part of what it comes down to is just, when you're reading, you're sort of taking your time with doing the work.
Yeah.
Right? So you're putting pronunciations in certain places, you're understanding the grammar, and someone else has already done the work for you and put the sentence in place. But when you're speaking, you're trying to do all of that, gather the information that you've already learned, try and formulate it into a sentence that with proper grammar and pronounce it the correct way, and have all of that before you actually speak the sentence. It's very tough, man.
I used to hate people that used to do that.
What?
You know, when you speak in, especially Somali, I'll try to. I'm decent. I think I'm decent. I'm quite confident in myself. But when I'm speaking it, sometimes I might think of words and it takes a while for my brain to process, and they say it for me. Tell me, what are you saying for me? I was about to say it. Let me learn. Why are you taking the words out of my mouth? You know, let me learn it, man. Yeah.
But there is a problem speaking it, because when you're writing it or reading it, and there's a word that you've never really known before, you got to search that up, you know? But if you're saying something, if I'm speaking to you and there's something I'm going to say but I don't know the word, I can describe it. I can use other words for you to give me that information if you're a fluent speaker in that language. Right? Like, if I don't know what a tree is, I can say, you know, the thing that's outside that goes into the ground with green things that come out, you know, like, I can explain it to you and you go, oh, that's a tree. You can learn that way a lot faster speaking it to someone that knows the language than sitting down and reading it.
No, but also the grammar too.
Right? So
the grammar too.
yeah, the grammar is
depending
very
on
interesting.
the
Like,
language.
yeah, it is.
Grammar
It depends on the language.
Like,
Depends on the
I'm
language,
still learning. Like, I know the majority of the Somali grammar, but sometimes I'll be like, I'll say things in Somali, but I use the English grammar content. Instead of Somali. Somali's all the way around, you know what I'm saying? And people look at me like, what the hell is this guy saying, man? But I say with confidence that they understand. It's all about the confidence, man. You just gotta be.
For me, like the natural language for me to speak, the one that I'm more confident in is English, right?
Yeah.
The second one would be Arabic. And that's due to the exposure. The amount of times that I've had to speak English compared to Arabic is a lot different, right? The third one would be Amharic. Now, I remember the time when I went to Ethiopia and I was sort of forced to speak Amharic. When I say forced, it was only because nobody there was able to speak Arabic or English to me besides my brother, and sometimes he wouldn't be available. So I sort of had to force myself to speak Amharic. Now, I knew some words, but how to construct them into the sentence and pronounce it and say it is very tough, right? So what I used to do, a bit similar to Almi, is I would say the sentence to myself in English, right? Find the words to replace those words and try and put the grammar correctly. All of that before I say one sentence.
And the worst part is they speak so fast back then, so they don't give you that chance.
They don't.
Like, you got a second, and if you don't reply then,
you just
you
give
get
one
roasted.
word
You get
response.
roasted.
Yeah. And it's extra tough, man.
Yeah.
It's really hard to just try and be able to process all of that within that time. Oh, man.
But like when we're talking about listening and reading, with the reading is you learn that there's so much words in the languages that you think you know that you don't know. Like in context wise, like have you ever read a book that you've never thought of reading, like that's outside of like your comfort zone or whatever you like reading and listening to, and then you just pick up on words that they use constantly that you're like, oh, all right, so I'm gonna add that to my vocabulary. Oh, I'm gonna add that. You know what I mean? Like you just.
And then all of a sudden you're dropping it on the voice.
Oh, you don't do that. You don't do that straight away.
That extra word.
They're gonna look at you like, oh, you actually use more than 3 syllables. But yeah, like I've been rereading the Game of Thrones books because of the TV show was kind of ended up in a bit of a flop. I've read them ages ago.
I think I'm the only one who hasn't actually watched Game of Thrones.
I'll say
I'm
read it.
probably the only one.
I'll say read it.
I haven't come across anyone else who doesn't watch Game of Thrones other than myself.
There's quite a few people out there.
Yeah?
Not everyone watches it, bro.
There are, but they're
I
minority.
feel like everybody's raving on about it. And I'm
Just
sitting
about
here like
dragons,
it's
bro.
not.
There's it's interesting like TV series.
Like all I gotta say is
Wait.
this guy sleeps through everything.
Yeah.
It can be a 20-minute video and he's asleep halfway
The-
through.
The last season, you know how many times I had to repeat it, bro? Like, cause I forgot where I was. I didn't do, man. My concentration span is
You
the
ever,
best.
you ever watch a TV show in a different language without any subtitles
Oh yeah.
and understand exactly what they're talking about?
Oh yeah. Because the body language is always the same.
Yeah.
The
of
woman
course.
has her hands in the guy's face. And
Of
then,
course,
yeah.
you know something's up. That's the villain right
Yeah.
there.
You
know,
can hear the
you
music
know.
gets shady and
Yeah.
the bass like sneaking. You're like,
You know.
something's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But man, yeah, just to think about like someone being able to speak 7 languages, I'm like, I actually watched this one documentary about this one young girl who literally knew 7 languages at the age of 7, I think it was, or 8. She's an African American. 7 languages, and 7 of the major languages. I'm not talking like small little languages within a certain region. No, I'm talking about 7 major languages. You know, like English, Arabic, Mandarin,
French,
you know,
Spanish,
Cantonese, French, Spanish. These major languages, she literally knew how to speak them. And the reporter would ask her, you know, bring a translator and say, "Can you say it in this language?" And you know, she'll speak it and hold a full-on conversation with that person in that language.
It's too hectic.
I'll be talking crap about it near her, man.
Oh no, of course not.
She'll pick up on it.
Yeah, of course not.
Mm.
But then, like, you wonder, wow, man.
But you do learn languages a lot quicker when you're younger. And you know, your accent stays for you after you pass, I think, 10 years old, is what I read. Like, yeah, so whatever your accent is past that, like before the age of 10, like around 10, 12, around there, that's the accent you have pretty much for life. So, yeah, so if you take a kid now, like your daughter, let's say to France, and she grows up there till she's 10, 11, and then you bring her back here, she'll be 20 with a French accent. Like,
But what I'm trying to get at is, see, there's a certain skill, and language is a skill in itself that we don't necessarily take advantage of or see it as very useful.
Yeah.
When actually language is a very, very useful skill.
we got
within
Google
our
Translate now, man.
Yeah,
Come
so
on now.
that's true, but
It doesn't work that well. But
It doesn't work that well.
I think the way you put it is, language is a huge skill because of the fact that it's just, you're able to communicate now to like a wider audience. There's more people that you can actually connect to, which is the same thing why I brought up the translator and everything, is just how the world is shrinking now. Because before, if you go back in 100, 200 years ago, and you got dropped somewhere in a country you don't know how to speak the language, where the road signs are different, everything is different, you'd struggle so bad. And then the importance of, I wish I could actually just communicate with someone now.
Yeah.
Basically, you need to go to the toilet and you're wondering, you're struggling. You're like, man, how do I even talk to this person, right? And that, for like a 7-year-old, as you said, to be able to learn that much, right? At that age, for her to be put anywhere, talk to any person on the bus, on the train, and be able to like gain some sort of knowledge and expand their mind is pretty crazy. When we, like we said, have people that struggle to learn their own, like, you know, parent language, like the language that the parents speak, that they, you know, were grown up on, are struggling to speak that. So you think about it, if those grandkids of, you know, people that we know go back and they can't even speak to their grandma or their grandfather, or can't even communicate that way because they don't know the language, it's kind of, it shows the importance of actually being able to speak and communicate with people.
Absolutely, but like it's a skill, and it's a skill that we as I haven't come across anybody that's a parent that said, you know, I'm going to teach my child all these different languages, or I'm going to at least teach my child 1 or 2 additional languages on top of what they're already learning. You know, like they don't emphasize the importance of it. They don't think of it as like it's a useful skill that eventually they're going to use. The only reason they teach them is if it's a necessity for themselves. You understand? So if it's a necessity, like you said, for them to go back home and speak to their grandma, they have to learn the language, their native language. And because they have to live here, it's a necessity. They have to learn the English language. And if they are Muslim and they want to understand the Quran and read the Quran, then they need to learn Arabic, and therefore they teach them how to read and write, maybe even speak, you know, but because it's out of necessity. But I'm like, why not be proactive and say, you never know what the future holds. They could potentially reside in a different country, maybe in Sweden, and they need to learn how to speak Swedish. Maybe they could reside in France, who knows? Or maybe they would become individuals who could da'wah, and to give da'wah, you know, to someone else who speaks a completely different language, you know, in their language, you connect a lot more compared to how you know, if you're using Google Translate, for example.
Definitely.
You know?
And also when you learn, the more languages you learn, the easier it gets for the next one for you, right? So if you learn a new language now, then if you try to pick up another one after that, it gets easier and easier.
Yeah, because I think like you learn how to learn.
Well, yeah, there's that learning how to learn, and also when you look at language, a lot of it is derived from somewhere. You know, languages are always made from other languages, almost like a branching tree, almost all the time.
Yeah.
So when you look at it, they go, what's the origin, where did it come from, you know? So if you learn three, and also grammar, the grammar of it is typically similar, there's not way too much grammar in there, so there's certain that are very hard. But once you get it, the grammar, generally what it is, then it's just picking up on words. Now it's just actually learning individual words, constructing and putting it together, stuff like that is the grammar of it. You know, because you've learned 3 languages already. 4 languages
So
already.
if you're learning like Italian and Spanish, you'll find there's certain similarities within them, the way they construct certain things, you know?
Yeah, like right now, picking up
Latin.
Arabic was easier for us.
Italian and Spanish is Latin. It's yeah, you guys are right. So
Yeah.
it's kind of
Even
No,
English
no.
is based on that. If you learn Arabic, you know, Somali becomes easier, Urdu might become easier, you know.
Somali in itself is like a mixture of all these different languages.
Yeah.
Somali is the most beautiful language, bro. It's the best language.
It is.
Wallah.
Bro, they describe you. English describes you.
You know, in a way, when you
Just
say something,
basically, Somali describes you, mate.
he can't put it in English words.
I can't even put an English word. It describes you all the way to the ground, bro.
That's the
I
way
can't
it
put
is.
in Somali.
It happens
That's
all the
really
time where, you know, someone make a joke, something happens and everyone's laughing or everyone's enjoying it. Or it's something that's like so poetic. And then they say, explain it,
I've
and
got an
then
English word for
you
you.
translate it in your mind and you go, don't worry about it. Nah,
Let me tell you something. Somali will describe you to the last atom on your body, bro. You know what I'm saying? You know the atom?
Yeah.
I don't know the science anyway. But the atom, they'll describe you to your last atom, like atom on your body. It's unbelievable, bro. I'm telling you, man.
It's poetic.
I might be exaggerating. Like, no Somalis do.
But that's all,
You know if
that's
there's
funny.
different-
You know what I mean?
there's different dialects.
It is different.
Yeah, there's different dialects. Yeah.
There's
What's the major one?
um,
Like the one that, regardless of where you go, you
I think it's-
find someone that
Nah,
understands you.
Nah. With the dialects, correct.
Forgot.
We're not experts. Hajj is the expert.
No, because it's like
There's different dialects.
Huh?
You guys know your own languages very well.
Yeah, no, like there's Afameme, like the one that we speak.
I know my language, but I'm not confident enough to say I might make a mistake, bro.
Don't worry.
I can't be told there's this.
But the main dialect is like a large portion of it. There's generally small words that they pick up from other dialects. You don't really see people speaking, well, you do, but full one other dialect is minority. For them to speak that full dialect with all their words. Normally it's someone with the main dialect and they pick up extra words from the other dialects. You know what I mean?
It's like small things,
right,
yeah.
right, right.
It's all the same, yeah. It's all the same.
But you can
But
tell
like,
based
for a
on-
couch or something, I don't think of anything. There's like 2 different dialects.
And the worst thing is like, because it's, well, in my opinion, there's probably people out there that have friends and stuff like that. The smaller dialects are, I don't hear them so much that when I do hear it, it sounds Somali, but the second you actually try to listen to what it is, you're like, what? Like every 5th word I'm understanding. Have you ever heard someone speak enough dialect? It's like, it sounds like your language. So instantly you're like, you hear rings, so you turn. But then you try to focus on the exact words they're saying, and you're like, I understand that word, don't know,
Yeah.
understand that word. Like, what is this guy talking? What is he saying? Oh.
Yeah, I've had that before, man. Because
I think that you probably hear that with Arabic, because apparently that happens a lot with Arabic.
I hear that with Arabic. I hear that with even Harari as well. Because Harari is like a nice mixture of Amharic, Arabic, and a bit of Tigrinya here and there. You know, I don't know. Like there's a lot of words that sound so similar. Like when my wife speaks to her mom, for example, I can just sit there. I don't understand that Harari, but I can just sit there and actually understand what they're talking about. Simply because some of the words sound so similar, and they, in most cases, mean the exact same thing anyway. You know, but it's just pronounced completely different. Or added
Some of
an
us
additional-
is different. Like,
Yeah, there is, but
bro, like for a fork or something.
it happens.
Like they'll tell you, go get me that spoon. And like you understand, go get me that.
But you don't know that.
Yeah, that spoon. What the hell's a spoon?
It happens with us
You know what I mean?
sometimes.
It
We'll
happens with
say
us.
something and I'll be like, what did you just say? People are like, okay, I got everything but this word. He's like, and then like half the people in the room say he said this, the other half is like, nah, he's saying this. You know what I mean?
It depends. Somali.
And
It
it's not-
depends on the region you're from. You know, if you're from the north, you speak like.
But it's like
If
stuff
you're
that's
from the
like
south, you're different.
very
Yeah.
close. Like he said a couch, nah, he said like a chair. You know what I mean? Like the words are very, very, very similar. It's just that you don't know what they mean. Like
So they
there's a
assign
few-
different meanings to it.
It's different, but it's like the thing is.
nah,
for
it's
me
like
and
a
him-
slang almost.
For me and him, like for me, I'm not sure about the other dialect. I won't understand those words. But like
Bro.
for Haji, for example, mashallah, he can understand both dialects. But
Yeah,
the
but
majority
he-
of people, if you know the language 100%, you can understand both.
It's like you can get it by context. You can always get it by context, no matter what it is. You're like, so I'll understand everything he says all the time. It's just that I'm like, why do you use that word that I've never heard before, or that I've heard that refers to something else?
Yeah.
You know. But with the Somali language, it's like that. Like, and
Well, it's good. We tease each other like that, then, man.
Oh yeah.
What the hell did you say? You said this. We said that. You said that. What? Doesn't make any sense. Just go at each other like that.
Yeah, and the weird thing is, like I said, it's just like people picking up on habits, on like smaller dialects, or even using words that probably just came out of slang all the time. That it won't be someone from a different tribe or from a different region that you completely disconnect with. Like, yeah, there's obviously that, but there'll be stuff like that same person that could be your cousin or your brother even, and he's using a different word to you, and you're like,
And the thing about both dialects, one like the other dialect, like, they'll speak like this with their hands.
every now and yeah.
Like you know how boys when they speak like, you know, they'll speak with their hands like this, bro, in your face.
Bro,
And then the
every
other
Somali
dialect,
speaks with their
Nah, nah,
hands.
nah,
nah, bro.
To me, I don't.
and the other dialect's very,
I'm
it's
gonna
very
break
mellow,
my-
very
Majority
chill,
of
you know.
Somalis that I've come
You know what
across,
I'm saying?
all of them.
they're very, very
I was
body
gonna-
language.
I was gonna say all
They
ethnics.
just
I was literally gonna say all ethnics, because have you ever had it where
actually, yeah.
with
I
someone-
can expand it to that as well. Yeah, all
they'll be like,
ethnics as well.
you'd be at work and they'd be like, I don't understand what this guy's saying, can you please help? The guy's an Arab, or the guy's like, he has a language I don't even speak, but I'm able to get further than they are because of just like body language.
That happened to me once at work,
Mm.
Well, I'll tell you the story. There was a lady, she was telling me something, this, that, and then I was talking, you know, I talk with my hands like this, that.
Always.
Then I went like this to her face, man. She was like, don't be pointing your fingers at me. I'm like, oh, no disrespect, that's just the way I talk, you know? She didn't really understand.
I think if you're non-ethnic, you should understand that every ethnic either shouts, speaks with their hands, or I don't know.
Have you ever got
They look very confronting when really they just say.
Have you ever got the-
She was
like,
very
polite
offended, man.
words
She was
and-
very offended.
Huh?
She was very offended, man.
Of course.
Like, we were-
My dad, for example, whenever he talks, you know, he'll talk with his finger as well, you know, and he'll point and stuff like that. But that's because of the culture that they come from, the language that they speak. It's just it has that desire. It gives you that
It's full,
little
bro,
force.
it's
I don't know,
full
man, like-
passion, bro.
Yeah, it's full of passion.
Have you ever had like, we were at the house one time and our neighbors came over and they were knocking and they were talking about something, and in the other room we were talking about football, soccer, you know what I mean? And we were speaking in Somali, but it got loud and they were like, is everything okay? Like, you know, they reach for their phone, like to call the police, like something's going, we're just talking about soccer in the other room. But to them, it's a big fight going on in the other room, like someone's gonna get stabbed or something like that, but it was nothing but joyous occasions going on in that room, just like some banter, some arguments, but like that's every culture. That's
Yeah.
every culture.
Yeah.
Like you see two Arabs fighting, you see two
It's
East
normal,
African and
man.
West African. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, they look like they're fighting, but they're actually resolving a matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the beauty of language is that when I think about it, I'm like, yo, what if this whole world, even if you were to just narrow it down to just Australia, right? What if the whole of Australia, each and every single person only knew and only spoke English? That's it. One dialect, one type of English, whatever, right? Or just one language, right? Do you think over time,
Oh yeah, there'll be slang, new dialect,
slang,
all of that
new
will happen.
dialects,
Yeah.
new variations to the language will be added?
Always does.
So because if that's the case, then I think it's natural that we eventually form our own new different languages, right? Because we believe that everybody came from Adam and Eve, right?
Yeah.
They must have spoke one language, but then over time, we're migrating to these different areas and so on, and populating, and it becoming the world that we see today. All these different languages have just sprouted, and
Yeah, but is it going to come back to one with all the technology now? Because what happens is now it doesn't matter what language you speak, we can understand each other. To have the one where you literally plug it into your ears, like a wireless earphone, and
Oh, yeah,
it translates real time, like
bro,
how
they
many
had that
languages.
some of the sitting
Like,
countries,
serious?
you'll sit there.
Yeah, you put it in right now. You're talking, and it's translating it into my ear right back. Like this, and then there's a little microphone one where you speak into it, like you can do it on your phone now as well, and it'll just say it back. Like, where would it be 50 years, 100 years from now? Like, it's going to get to a point where people are just going to pick the easiest one to speak, the easiest one that's on like the human tongue. Like, what's going to happen? But there's always going to be language, though. Like, I reckon that it will be.
Of course, you need a way to communicate.
No,
Language is always
but
gonna
I mean
be
multiple languages.
there. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Regardless of whether you bring it back to one, the beauty
I
of
reckon-
language is that it is made, it is there, it's going to eventually, like sprout into
Yeah.
different ones.
Because people, I'm not going to use this word. I'm going to make another word because we connect in a different way. Like, the way we, that's how slang starts.
Yeah, it's natural.
I'm not going to use this boring regular word. I'm going to use this made up word that connects to my feelings about this situation better. Pretty much that's how all slang is, And so no matter what happens, there's always going to be that.
But there's always new slang coming up, man.
But it always changes too.
Yeah.
Like there's words that cannot be used
That's
anymore.
what I do, man. Someone says a new word to me. Where's my friend? Where's the Urban Dictionary, man?
Yeah, like now you can't really use crazy anymore.
I'm serious, bro. I literally have to go to the Urban Dictionary, man. That's how behind the water I am, bro.
But like I'm saying, words are becoming restricted as well.
What I try to do is I try and understand the younger generation. That's the most important for me. Like I try and like speak to the younger ones and just try and speak on their level. Because now they're not even doing languages. They're literally trying to shorten it and do abbreviations and do little
Smile emojis
and just words and whatnot. And they're just using letters, to
Yes.
spell out a whole sentence. And I'm like, all right, that's a whole new language in itself. And
yeah, but that I see that as a problem, and I don't want to seem like the old person here, but like it's great in the fact that they can like communicate and all that. But whenever they have to communicate on a deeper level, I realize they don't know how to.
no,
Because in the sense that if me and you are growing up and we're always sending each other abbreviations and little texts here and there, we're never having full conversations, blah blah bang. Now something happens that's emotionally strenuous or something like and now we really gotta have a serious conversation. You can't use abbreviations. It's just
What do you mean, bro? They do. They say this like that the other day. Instead of saying to be honest,
Nah,
they say
but,
TBH, bro. That's what they say.
but if some
They
dude
say
sitting there with
TBH,
cancer and you
bro.
gotta talk to your boy like I care for you and stuff like that. You're not gonna be like TTYO. I gotta go out the door. It doesn't happen. You have to have that deep
Bro, they do,
conversation.
man. I'm telling you, man.
Not in serious.
They do, man. Like,
in serious.
not serious. I don't think they'll do
Yeah,
that.
like you do that all the time, but now you got a job interview at like the place that you really want to get
I
to.
don't think you would drop lingos like that.
That's what I'm saying.
Telling you
But
they do.
then it becomes harder for them because they never
They do.
use certain words.
Because it becomes a habit.
I
It becomes a habit.
think they become multi-skilled actually, because for them to be able to speak, they can't speak in that lingo. But when they type in that. So the fact that they're able to switch between the two makes them even
But
more
when I go to
skilled.
an
That's
interview,
what I think.
I don't speak the normal way I speak as well. You add on. It's always an add-on. You know what I mean? So the abbreviations is the short part. The way they talk now is with so much slang that's already shortened down that when they go for the interview, they're barely speaking the
They're
regular.
just giving 1 or 2 word answers.
They're giving one sentence answers and when they say expand and explain, you ever had that question?
Yeah.
Oh, I know the answer, yeah, but
They're
expand
like
and
CBA.
explain it. And you're like, show your work here.
Yeah.
Like you gotta be able to have that. But then on top
I
of
think
that,
the most important thing is that we connect with them using the language that they do, that
Yeah.
they use.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I've been doing, and I actually do that a lot. And man, you'll be surprised at how many new abbreviations come up. Sometimes I actually have to search it up. Sometimes I'll go and ask my younger sister,
Have you ever-
"Hey, what does this mean?" And they're like, "Oh, it means this."
have you ever tried to like be cool and use it in like, because just on context alone you think you know what it means, but
Yeah.
you don't.
You don't.
So you're like, oh yeah, I think I know what that means, and then you say it and they're all looking at you like, oh yeah.
What?
I messed up. But like I said, like here's a crazy thing. We're talking about like language and how you can connect, but that's the same thing. Like language within language. Like just because we all speak English, you don't connect to people just speaking your English. And that's what I meant by the kids. Like yes, it is great for you to be able to know that language to connect to the kids, but the kids need to learn other ways of speaking English to connect to the other world. Like obviously, like I said, there's interviews and personal stuff, but there's also like if you're talking to a professor, right now, if a professor walks in here, someone with like, you know, higher education in science or whatever it is, even speaking the regular jargon that we speak, is not going to cut it because he's going to start using medical terms to explain things. But what I'm saying is like being able to not just speak the language, but kind of navigate through that language to like connect to people, because you can walk up to a group of like young African kids and they'll talk a certain way. There'll be some young white kids and it'll be different abbreviations or a different way to talk to them, you know, different kind of like hip hop slang, pop culture, you know, you reference different things, like just the way you communicate to them will be different slightly. Always is. You got, you know, you go to your mechanic compared to go to your doctor,
like
you speak to them different.
At the end of the day, I don't think that just because they choose this route that they're automatically.
Oh no, I'm throwing that on
route.
us. I'm throwing that on everyone out there. Like, learn how to connect, not just speak.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, speaking is one thing, because, like you said, with the kids, you can sit there and you can talk to them for like 15 minutes, and afterwards you can walk out and be like, man, that's like, you know, that can be on like what's his name? It could be on like some TV show, you know, it's a good speech, you know, like that was the best speech I've ever done, and that's going over that kid's head, like, you know, because that might have connected with your mate. You know, your mate's been in a bad spot and you're talking to him and like, oh, look how much you helped him. It's not going to work for the kid. It's not going to work for a parent. It's not going to work for, you know what I mean? So for us in general, because we go, I'm so smart, I'm so educated, but then we fail in certain aspects. It's like, are we even communicating right?
That takes skills, man.
Exactly.
That takes a lot of skills in communication.
It does.
Different ages.
But you gotta stay ahead.
Language barriers.
And you gotta stay ahead and realize that your children, the way they communicate is completely different to the way. Like you said, gone are the days for the necessity to actually learn these different languages because you've got Google Translate. Now, even if you know the language, that's not enough. You gotta know how these young kids speak, which is in these coded letters, right? That they form into.
But even know about like how they speak. Then you eventually learn what they're saying, and you have no idea what they're talking about. Like it was a reference to this thing, and you're like, what? It's a thing that happened last week. It's already gone. It's old. It's washed. And you're just sitting there like, oh, you know, like how can you even keep up if you can't even speak it? Because there's always like,
I'll give you one example. I'm at home with the rentals. What does that mean?
Parents.
Yeah. Most people don't know that. Parents.
The rentals.
Oh.
Yeah. You see, that's how you know you're outdated.
Brush up, you bro.
Brush up.
The rentals, I'm like, this guy, is he going to prom? Is he like, does he have like a night?
Instead of seeing they cut out the PA, bro. Just rentals.
Yeah.
I'm at home with the rentals.
That's disrespectful to your parents, man.
Well, you know what I mean.
I'm
it comes down to that, like,
you
you gotta stay up to date. That's what I do on a regular basis. The thing is, like, just because you're an adult doesn't mean you don't have to surround yourself with children. Surround yourself with children and understand, because they're the future.
They're moving ahead. The kids nowadays are moving ahead so
they're the
fast.
Future, the way, sometimes I'll sit down with my cousins and I'll sit down with like my younger in-laws and stuff, and I'll just sit down and just listen to them. And sometimes I'll have conversations with them, and the words that they use, I literally get so intrigued about. I'm like, how did you even come up with this? Like, how did they even come up with rentals? Like, and for them to all be in sync and actually understand that that's what it means. And
no, but the fact that it's spread through all of them without you knowing, not knowing at all,
exactly,
it shows like there's
exactly,
it shows me that there's a disconnect.
Anyway, man, the beauty of language, the beauty of these new formed ways of communicating, is it's amazing when you actually consider it.
You know what really gets me now? I just remember now, back when I was a little kid, you know, back when my family and parents, aunties and all that were around. We speak Somali English at home. But when they wanted us to not listen to their conversation, boom, they flip it around. They flip it Amharic, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You couldn't keep up, man. That's when I was like, damn, I want to listen.
You remember gibberish?
Have you ever been in a situation like that?
Kids, when the kids speak gibberish?
No, I don't know. I don't know. We had this in New Zealand. My aunties used to do this. They used to say, I don't know. I don't know the language itself or how to actually use it. But they used to, I think, omit certain vowels or whatever, and from words, and then they'll pronounce it and it just sounded gibberish, right? But they understood what it meant, and I was sitting there and I'm like,
I know what you're talking about.
What are you guys talking about?
When they add something to the end of the letter, something at the beginning of the word.
Something like that. I don't know, bro. I don't know.
My little sister used to speak that. Yeah, I remember that rubbish.
No, we're just thinking about that. We might be we have to communicate with the younger, because we might be either this generation or next generation is going to be the one where the kids like overtake. Because imagine now, like you've been working hard, you got like a job, 9 to 5, bang, bang, bang. Your kid turns 17, he's making $1 million off Instagram, you bought a new house, and you're just sitting there like, everything you told this kid means nothing now, because you know what I mean? Like, he's in that, like, and you did not connect with him, like, because it can happen. Like, I mean, our generation probably started, but we were immigrants, so it's a bit different. That where we, by the time we were teenagers, had a firm grasp of this, like, country way more than our parents did. You know what I mean? Like, the language, the technology, how to use things. How long did it take your parents to figure out how to use the internet? Like, that was a struggle. And when you were a kid, you could pick it up like this. So the way you can connect to information was way higher than your parents could, you know? Faster and faster, internet's getting faster, the way we communicate faster, translating is shrinking and shrinking. It gets to the point where if we don't keep up, it's not that we're going to be ahead of them and not know what they're doing.
Exactly.
We're going to be completely left behind. We're going to know less than they do. You know, we might have the morals and the way to navigate things, but what they're actually navigating is things we don't even know about because you can't even connect to them because they're way ahead of you. So being able to talk to the kids and understand it and like learn the language pretty much because they speak their own language now. Like they're speaking memes, which is pretty funny.
I know. I speak in memes.
Yeah, same, yeah.
What do you mean speaking memes? Like short film?
Like, have you ever not replied to someone asking a question with just like a meme?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know, just express yourself straight through.
And they respond back in the meme, and then it's another meme, and then
I know what you mean, yeah.
and you all understand each other. And it's like if you were to just read through it and just try and understand it, it would be like, it's really funny, but at the same time, like it's a full-on conversation.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, we grew up in that. So now what are the kids doing that we don't know, that we're not hip to? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That TikTok, like, that one went over my head.
TikTok?
Yeah. Because wasn't there already Vine that did that? Eh?
No, it used to be Musical.ly, and they rebranded it to TikTok.
Oh, yeah, because I remember that.
Yeah.
Was it an app, is it?
It's just a way for them to do like karaoke, and at the same time just record themselves and.
Then it just turned into like a new version of Vine, which was.
Oh, yeah.
See what I mean?
I've seen those videos, man. Yeah.
We're behind.
Anyways, I think we've talked about this enough, but hopefully we've been able to communicate what we're trying to say in this episode well enough. But I think you've got a couple of questions.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions.
You're hiding over there.
We're back.
I'm with paper. Let's do this.
Piece of paper. Alright. Okay, I've got 5 questions. General knowledge, all over the place.
Let's go.
There's only 2 of you guys today.
Alright. Brain cell somehow.
Number 1. What's the largest freshwater lake in the world?
Lake.
If you can't if you can't give me a name, just choose a continent.
What's the largest
Freshwater lake in the world. Fresh water.
Can you narrow it down to a country and we'll tell you if we know it or not?
Oh, how would this work?
Yeah, well, give us a continent, rather.
And then we'll pick a country.
Either out of Asia, South North America, Europe.
Where is it located? I'd say fresh water.
Come
I don't know. I'll say North America.
Let's say Asia.
No, brother.
North America?
North
or
America.
South
North America.
North America? Wow. Where is that?
What's it called? Lake Superior. North
Never
America.
heard of it.
Anyway.
Fits the name.
Alright, you guys, this one's, I'd expect you guys to know it.
You put that pressure on us.
What is someone who shoes a horse? Who puts the, you know the horseshoe on a horse? What do they call that person?
Oh man.
The dude that makes the horseshoes.
Yeah. What do they call that person? Who fits the,
Yeah.
pretty much fits the shoe on the horse. Even how do you know this
I
one?
think I used to know it. I don't know.
It's not a comma.
Habs didn't tell you boys?
No, Hans didn't tell us.
Nah. I'm lost.
No
bro.
clue.
I don't know. What's the answer?
A farrier.
Farrier.
Farrier. I never knew that.
No.
Farrier.
Never
Nah.
got it.
Alright.
Thought I knew.
I thought it would come to me once you get the answer.
Next, come on.
What's the world's biggest island? World's biggest
Australia.
Biggest island. Would Madagascar fit as an island?
That's big. Come on now.
That's
You
big.
dragon. You're literally branding out, mate. There's bigger ones than that.
Greenland, Iceland. I think there are islands on there.
Island?
See,
I don't know, man.
Take a guess.
I'm just gonna go with Madagascar. I don't
What do
know.
you guess?
was it Australia? That used to be, but they changed it from an island.
Technically,
Yeah, I'll go to Australia.
Australia.
Yeah.
You said the answer, bro.
Oh,
But you just switched
Greenland.
it up.
Iceland.
Greenland.
Greenland?
Ah, the name deceives you, you know?
Greenland.
Greenland's the one that's full of ice as well.
Okay.
that name deceives you as well, right? there.
Talking about language.
Who's that?
Talking about language. What's the official language of Nigeria?
Of Nigeria.
Of Nigeria.
Nigerian, that's a...
No. Oh man.
What is it, bro?
I know this, man. I know this. Ghana, I know the official is English, national. Nigeria, I think it's Igbo or something. It has a Y in it, bro. Like
I'm not gonna tell you the answer.
Oh,
I cannot
man.
give you any clues, man. I don't know, man.
bro, say it, say it.
Just guess
Say it,
anything,
say
bro.
it, bro. I can't say it, say it.
What do you got, man?
It's not gonna be English.
It is English, bro.
Is it?
It's English.
Oh man.
Is the
So
most
Ghana is definitely.
I thought it would be French or something, eh?
None.
I think that's Senegal, eh?
There's another. How many of these did we answer but not answer? You
Okay.
said English, but it wasn't.
Back to the
I said
continent
England.
of Africa, which was the first African country to qualify for the World Cup. As in Football World Cup. The first African country to
Egypt?
qualify for the World
I
Cup.
think
Was it Egypt or South?
Cameroon.
Was it Cameroon?
Maybe. Either Cameroon or Senegal. No, it wouldn't be Senegal. Senegal? Bro.
Oh no!
Think
I
about
don't
this
know.
one, think about
I'm
this one,
just gonna take a wild guess. I'm gonna go with Senegal.
I don't know Ethiopia. You never know, bro.
I don't think Ethiopia's gonna
I'm
qualify.
gonna say Egypt.
Ethiopia, I'll be second.
Don't say
Senegal, Egypt, blah, blah.
Egypt?
Egypt.
I was like, bro, if he changes.
Oh no, I was
again-
gonna change it.
Ah, yeah.
I was because was it
Yeah.
Egypt like?
Egypt,
You know,
exactly.
but you don't- you're not
The year of
100%.
1934.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Egypt qualified, first African nation to
That's
qualify
mad.
for the World Cup, man.
That's
That was a long
mad.
time ago, but
It's still
Yeah.
fighting for it though.
yeah.
Hopefully the listeners would have had a chance to try and guess some of the answers before
Yeah.
we answered them.
Oh, they're probably
And
pulling
before
the
you
hair
see
out
the
and just
answers.
messing up the answers.
Absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, that's all we have for this episode, inshallah. So hopefully you enjoyed it, and as always, make sure you subscribe, follow, share, and give us some feedback as well. DM us if you want, or just comment on some of the posts that we send out. Until then, see ya.
Adios.
That's it.